everyone, and welcome to the first Vitality Talks of 2021. My name is Sandra Fuentes. I'm the PR and marketing manager at Hosco. And I know it's already the 21st of January, which seems crazy. I feel that the time is already flying. But I don't want to miss this opportunity to wish you all a very happy new year. No need to say how tough, right, 2020 was for all of us. So I just want to wish you all a very happy new year, full of health for everyone. Let's cross our fingers, right, for health for everyone and prosperity for the year that's ahead. We have with us today Steve Hood, who is the Senior Vice President of Research at STR. And we are so thankful that you're bringing this fresh data to us today, Steve, about the recovery of the hotel industry. He will be presenting in a minute. Before we jump into this information that we all want to know about what's going to happen and where the prediction is, what is data telling us, right, about the recovery of our industry, which is no need to say one of the best in the world, and which was one of the fastest growing one until last year. And I know we're going to get there eventually with time and hard work, but we will get back there. Who we are, what's Hosco. If you're here with us, it's because you either receive our invitation via email or you find us through social media. Hosco was founded in Geneva, Switzerland in 2011. And our mission, our passion, the one that drives us is, wait a minute. Okay, that was, I think someone is having an issue with a link or something and it keeps appearing on the screen. Our passion, what drives us, is empowering hospitality by uniting all of our professionals and our schools and our companies, hospitality companies around the world. And before we begin, last but not least, as you know, at the bottom of your screen, you have a QA box, Q&A, question and answer. Please submit your questions. We will be answering them at the end of the session. I hope that we can answer all of them. We will see. I'll be monitoring them closely so Steve can address them at the end of the session. Also, if you want to, of course, have a look again at this presentation, you will be receiving the recording of this webinar on your email on Tuesday. So if you want to go back and look at some data, you will have it right there in your inbox on Tuesday. And that's pretty much everything from my side. Steve, all yours. And thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, thank you, Sandra, and thank you, Hosco. We appreciate working together with you. I've been working with the Hosco people for, it seems like, forever, and great organization, and great to be able to be with you. Audience, thank you. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you might be around the world. And the presentation today will definitely be going all over the world. I'm going to share my screen now, and I have a lot of data to share. And okay, I think we're ready to go. I called this a global hotel industry update. And looking towards recovery, and a lot of data to share. Going to go through quickly. Feel free to put a question in a chat. Obviously, I can't cover every speck of the world, but don't hesitate to let me know if you'd like more information. You see my email address there, shood@str. To introduce myself real quick, I have two roles at STR: Senior VP of Research and Founding Director of a program called the Share Center. And real quick, I think most of you know STR. We collect a huge amount of hotel data all over the world, 180 countries, nearly 70,000 hotels. We provide a benchmarking service to all the hotels in the world. We deal with most all of the major chains and even regional chains as well. So they use our data to figure out how to improve their performance. We also provide that data to tourism organizations and consulting firms. A lot of people obtain that data. Now, we know a pretty big chunk of the audience today is professors and students. And for you all, we have a special program called the Share Center that I run, supporting hotel-related academic research and education. So for academics, if you're in a university right now, we provide data for research, data for student projects using the classroom, a lot of other resources. We have certifications. Now, they're both for students and industry. We'll mention them briefly. But we launched this program, the Share Center, that is, back in 2011. We now have 1,000 schools involved. If you're a student or a professor and you don't know about this program, we provide all that data for free, a lot of services and ways we can help. So please get in touch with us. We'd be glad to help you out. So let's start looking at the world. We're gonna sort of go very high and then zoom in. I'll start off with sort of a global update. We will drill into Europe a little bit, and then we'll look at recovery scenarios as well. Now, obviously, one of the big stories in 2020 is the amount of hotel closures. This just shows you the closures in Europe. And we can see countries like Spain went down to about 20%. That's 80% closed, 20% open during April-May timeframe. Now, most of those came back online come August, September. And of course, there you see the impact of lockdown 2.0, and some people would argue and say, well, it's really 3.0. But anyway, a big lockdown in November and December, still stretching into January. You're beginning to see some of those come back online, so that's good news. Here's just Mideast. Now, the interesting thing in Mideast is we really haven't seen lockdown 2.0 in the Mideast. So it has been definitely a phenomenon in Europe, though, and in other areas of the world. Let's look at 2020 full year occupancies. And now, one of the interesting stories in 2020 is we actually had to report occupancy two ways. Our standard way of doing it is basically you take the rooms sold and divide it by the rooms available. But hey, that's a little more complicated when a lot of hotels are shut down. So, we had to create a second methodology that counted the rooms available based upon the beginning of the year. And that was called TRI, total room inventory. So occupancy, we measure in two different ways. But either way you look at it, 2020 was not a stellar year, no surprise there. And places like mainland China and Mideast really lead the group, and close to 50. Other places, mid 50s, Europe, mid 30s. So, not a stellar year at all. No surprise by that. When you look at Revpar, now Revpar is important because that's sort of how the industry looks at the world from a profitability point of view. Those numbers are really low as well. And just to give you an idea, this is sort of Revpar in a percentage. This is Revpar percent change. Look at Revpar percent change. Most places is below 50. I mean, it's greater than 50 in a negative direction, unfortunately. So it's negative 50 or below. But look at Europe, negative 60 Revpar, and so no surprise. 2020 was a tough year. Now, this looks at it from a timeline point of view for the major regions, and we just see sort of the progression. No surprise, China went down first. China's the green line, and it has recovered pretty consistently. Now, it has plateaued a little bit more recently. You see other areas. Look at Europe. Europe is the red line. It went down sort of second, plateaued. Europe had a great August, as you all know. Staycations were in August, but then has dipped again back down right now as a whole, 14.9%. This is occupancy, by the way. Other areas different, and you see U.S. in there, Mideast in there. Mideast has probably been the most consistent in terms of recovery there, but it has varied every area of the world. I'll drill down to Asia a little bit more in a minute, in addition to China. This is just a review of 2020, and this is just, these are heat maps based upon occupancy. You see the legend. The red is less than 25%, orange is 25 to 50, blue is 50 to 75, green 75 to 100. If you look at January, it's pretty much a mix of occupancies all over the world. Then go to the first week of February. and boom, China turns red, and we know there's a problem there. In March, we begin to see that problem in Europe. And then by April and May, basically, April, the world is pretty much red with a little bit of orange. In May, you begin to see China coming back a little bit, and June, you see North America coming back. The Americas coming back a little bit. July fair, August, like I said, good in Europe, and September things begin to head back down a little bit, and then November, December. So this sort of shows you the progression over the year where we've been. At this point in time, here's that monthly data from December, just last month. We'll have January data in a couple weeks, but this is data from December. And again, we're many of the world areas of the world are in lockdown 2.0. Numbers here are not stellar, but the only good news is it's better than March. So better than March and April was. So, but some areas, China and Mideast are above the 50, Australia, Oceania above 50. So, there are some green shoots among this data as well. Now, obviously, in our current situation, everybody is interested in China. China's sort of ahead of the curve, and people are looking very closely at China to try to see, what maybe the rest of the world is going to do. This shows China from an occupancy point of view throughout the year. Now, you'll notice the line there, that horizontal line is 0%. So this is a percent change data. You'll notice in September and October, China had several holidays that did cause the occupancy to go positive. Now, remember, positive percent change means greater than last year. If you look at China by January, by the time, for New Year's and into January, it's back very near positive territory again. This is another way to look at China. This is just China this year versus China last year. You saw the September, October, at several points. Here we're looking at actual data, not percent change. At several points, the actual data for this year did surpass the actual data for last year, and then it did again. It's heading back in that direction again as well. So ADR, one of the good signs is that the ADR has not dipped as much as the occupancies are, and hotel companies tend to be, learning some lessons from prior downturns. They're tending to be a little stricter as far as ADR is concerned. That's good news because they're trying to maintain profitability. And you'll see that even in China situation, that ADR has been positive a fair amount of times. So that's good news. A couple more slides on China. This is just showing in China, one of the things we're seeing is that the second tier cities, tier 2 through tier 5 on the very right hand side, you'll notice in several of the last weeks, they have been in positive territory. Now compare that to the tier 1 cities. The tier 1 cities in China, like Beijing and Shanghai, they've been a little less, and that's of course a sign. Something we've seen. The larger cities are more impacted by this than the smaller cities. We're seeing that in China as well. An interesting thing in China is Sanya. Sanya, of course, is probably the top resort destination in China. A great year for Sanya, and one of the misconceptions is everybody's doing terrible. Well, that's not the case. A place like Sanya, their Revpar percent change by the end of the year, December, was positive. They actually did better this year compared to last year. A lot of resort business in Sanya, and it was either, and I'm not as familiar with China, I can get you more information, but a lot of it drive to short haul. But people out there traveling, and Sanya had a good year. And during the recent holiday, I think in October, that was Golden Week in Sanya, very record ADR and 90% occupancy. So again, you can't think that every place, every hotel in the world is doing awful right now, because that is not the case. Another interesting sign out of China that we noticed for New Year's, just New Year's, big deal in China. Holidays have taken on a whole new significance in the hotel industry. They've gained a lot of respect. We had positive numbers in China coming out of here. And the other interesting thing is, look, the luxury and upper upscale hotels, that's where people were staying in a lot of high-end hotels during the New Year's holiday. It'll be interesting to see Chinese New Year's. That's coming up soon, and that'll be really, really telling. The good news is people in China are getting out, and that's good news. This shows China along with the rest of Northeast Asia, all heading in basically the right destination. There's a little seasonality issue in there that our office said, hey, don't worry, that's not a downturn, that's just seasonality, it'll come back. So that's sort of what's looking there. Hong Kong, not stellar numbers, but you're seeing gradual increase. We're back to 50, and that tends to be a bar that everybody is trying to overcome, and that's happening in Hong Kong. This is showing you the Indian Ocean countries, and Maldives had a great end of 2020. Here's a close up of that, and look at those occupancies head up, and it looks to me, I can find out more detail, but it looks to me like international travel has turned back on there. They must be having flights in there, and look at those numbers. They went up to 80% for New Year's. Australia rebounding, heading back in the right direction. Now, Australia is not as based on international demand. In Australia, there's been a huge promotion, a lot of drive-to domestic travel, vouchers, all kinds of cool things going on in Asia, travel bubbles, all kinds of cool things that the governments there are trying to do to promote tourism, and Australia is heading back in the right direction for sure. These are the Asian countries, a lot of stories in the Asian countries. And, Singapore, for example, looks great, but it's all quarantine business contracted with the government, and I can tell you more about that. But two of the interesting things we've seen recently, Indonesia, Malaysia, really beginning to move up a lot. And so some good signs coming out of ASEAN. Other things, the Philippines is going down, but that's really just the end of government contracts. It's not, the end of demand. It's so you got to understand everything going on there. If anybody's interested in any of these areas, let me know. Africa, Northern Africa is a little, little slow in terms of recovery, but we are seeing some progress in Southern Africa coming out, where some of these different countries are actually heading in the right direction. New Year's Eve ADR in some of the European markets actually surpassed last year levels. And again, a good sign. New Year's Eve, and think of it, people penned up, any excuse to get out now. Boom, they are jumping on it. That's a great sign for the future, because now we're thinking 2021. We're thinking about the, spring break type situation and the summer break type and summer vacation type situation. So they're very positive signs. New Year's Eve in Mideast markets, there were some Mideast markets that had really good numbers on New Year's Eve. And so that was a good sign coming out of the Middle East. Look at Dubai. Dubai's beginning to catch up. If you look at the 2020 numbers compared to 2019, not stellar in April, May, June, July, but now we're seeing things move back up till we get to January. ADR heading in the right direction there as well. It was actually positive for a couple of the days so far this year. Now, one of the things we track, in addition to historic occupancy, that would be what has already taken place, is we look at forward occupancy as well. That's our Forward Star program, and that is great data for right now. If you look at forward occupancy, and this is just for Dubai, because a lot of people are interested in Dubai right now with the expo coming up, we see, it's there's some good business on the books. It's not ahead of last year, but it's definitely respectable. And the pickup, which is what you measure when you're looking at forward occupancy, that's the increase over week to week, that is actually pacing ahead of last year. So, that's just, one market, but those are some good signs. Here's just a peek ahead. Latin America, as I said, weekend getaways gained a whole new respect in some of the big destination areas in Latin America. We're seeing some good weekend business, and again, another sign of hope. To the U.S. real quick, New Year's Eve, big week. You can see, and this is just looking at week over week increase in demand. And the biggest number there, of course, is New Year's Eve. That's just compared to the prior week. So, that's not a huge story, but, it was respectable. Another interesting sign coming out of the U.S. is this was a sporting event that took place this week. So it was related to New Year's Eve, but look at the big numbers in Miami. Now, Miami has not done real well in 2020, but you have a big sporting event and its occupancy almost went up to 70%. Hey, that's, almost back to normal. The interesting thing is, and the thing to emphasize is, here you have a major event. People use that to get out and travel. So even in the midst of, some fear and trepidation, people still took advantage of this and went to this event. And not only did they go, but they spent a lot of money doing it. And so, a positive sign for sure. Hotel markets with highest occupancies are no longer in China. Look at some of the other ones that have shown up. You see Singapore in there, you see Dubai, you see Sydney, a couple Australian markets, you see the Florida Keys. So good news is some of the high markets, and this is just for the month of December, some of those high occupancies, we're beginning to see other cities show up on this list in addition to China. And this is just from December 2020 as well. Now, obviously, the markets in Europe really hard hit. They're all in red. These are occupancy buckets below 25, shows up in red. But what you will notice is there's a fair amount of green in there in the Mideast, in Asia, New Zealand. Miami almost made it with that big sporting event. And so, some areas are seeing some recovery. And of course, Europe will be catching up soon. We're going to drill down into Europe because I know a lot of the audience is in that area of the world. Let's take a look at Europe and how are we doing on time? Oh, good. We're making good progress here on time. So we'll have a lot of time for Q&A, I think. Let's take a look at Europe and take a look at what's going on there. Now, you'll see the progression for a lot of these countries during time. You can see if we go all the way back, you see Italy hitting bottom first, and that really went down, started down in February and hit bottom in March, where most of the other ones hit bottom in April. And you can see the progression, how many of these came back up. You see some were more impacted than others. You see Spain, for example, significantly impacted. Now, as I said, August was a great month for Europe, and we had a whole lot of staycation activity. And but then that has leveled off a little bit, and you'll see in October, November, most of these countries headed back down. Now, they all didn't do it at the same rate. You can say UK is actually resisted that downward trend a little bit, but then we go into lockdown 2.0, and then pretty much everybody's going down. And now at the end of into January, everybody's in the 5 to 20% occupancy range. That'll be coming back soon, but that's sort of a time progression of where we are in Europe and all the various countries. This is Europe as a whole, and this just shows you occupancy percent change versus the prior year. Now, you'll notice in April and May, we were looking at percent changes of -80, below -80. At this point in time, we're more in the -70 range, so we're a little bit better than the initial lockdown, and that's it's not great news, but at least it's not as bad as before. One of the interesting signs that we've seen in lockdown 2.0, look at the rate difference, the ADR difference in lockdown 2.0, significantly different. So you had a lot of fear going down in lockdown 1.0. You'll notice ADRs are down around -40 in lockdown 2.0. And I think people see this as more of a shorter situation. It's not going to last forever. Less of an inclination to decrease rates, and that's good news. That's the hoteliers thinking about the future, thinking about profitability, and responding intelligently, making good strategic decisions to keep the performance of their hotels as high as possible in lockdown 2.0. ADR in some markets above last year level. So that's, that's weekly data. And it also shows you the differences between the regional areas and the main cities. So we've seen the big cities have been more impacted from an ADR and an occupancy point of view, and you can see the differences here as well. So looking at the cities in Europe, you'll see the domestic and the drive-to type destinations are really the ones that are doing better. If you look at some of these areas, places like Moscow, less impacted. Some of the places in Eastern Europe, some of the smaller cities, less impacted. Look at some of the cities in the UK, Liverpool, Bath, less impacted. Lyon, less impacted, smaller city and easier to get to. So interesting to see that, and that's one of the trends we've seen throughout the whole 2020 as we've been tracking that data over time. As we look ahead, this is showing many of the cities in Europe, business on the books. And again, that's the forward-looking data, the business on the books. It's somewhat weak. It's not what it was the prior year, but it's still, there is still significant business on the books heading into 2021. Now, one of the interesting things to see as we look on business on the books, look at some of the spikes there in some of these cities, and what will you notice? You'll notice these spikes are related to big events in the cities, and you can see, one event, for example, in February. We'll see if that materializes or not, but you can see weekend activity. So a lot of these are weekend getaways, and in June and July, you begin to see some spikes that are related to events. You see that in August, you see that in September, October, and then something big in November, and people are booking for these events going out in time. So that's good news. Many people are planning ahead for some of these situations coming up. A little bit of lift you see during the summertime, a little bit of lift in August you see. Look at some of the big events in some of these different areas. In Glasgow, you see a big event, Occupancy, already booked in November of 2021, up to 90% for this particular event. In London, we have some sporting events that have caused significant increases in booking. Now, again, this is forward looking, but a 20% spike for some of these is going to mean a lot more than that when you get closer. So these are good signs. And then interesting in Cardiff, just looks like we got a sporting event and a concert and an entertainment event. But the good news is, as people are looking ahead, people are booking. They're realizing that, hey, things are going to be better, and we're looking ahead. So let's talk a little bit about recovery and what that's going to look like. And this is sort of a big picture view of recovery. First, let's look at the first line graph. We're seeing 2020 compared to 2019. You see and this is pretty much all markets excluding China, just to help you see that. See a big dip in the April-May timeframe, a slow recovery of occupancy during the year. And notice on a worldwide basis, we're up to around 40% occupancy by the end of the year. Now, obviously, lots of places are better than that. This is a big picture number. As we head into 2021, Q1 is going to begin to see some improvement, but we really see recovery in Q2. This is our forecast. We do our forecasting with Tourism Economics and the leading forecast company for the travel and tourism industry, and so we work together with that. But you can see a little bit of a spike coming into Q2, and then another spike coming into the summer months, and so that's sort of what we're projecting, and then leveling off, and then heading out 2021 sort of in par with that. That's just projection. That could be better. That could be worse. Obviously, there are a lot of things going on. Vaccines are coming out, and so all of that's dependent. But we're looking at basically slow recovery during 2021. It will be different by different areas of the world. This is showing select markets, and you can see different recovery scenarios in different areas of the world. These line graphs that I'm showing you here, and these are just forecasted data for 4 markets. These line graphs are showing you demand percent change. Remember, demand or rooms sold. So that's important. You see some of these areas getting back close to zero, and this is versus 2019. So that's what people are looking at when they're looking ahead. When will we get back to metrics from the end of the year 2019? So you can see some of these areas are pretty close. Some are still a little off by the end of 2021. Now that's demand percent change. Keep in mind, recovery is measured by a bunch of metrics. Demand is simply the room sold. Now that will obviously recover first among all the metrics. But the second metric that will recover will be occupancy. Occupancy is closely related to demand, but it is impacted by supply as well. And keep in mind, as we headed into 2020, we were at an all-time high of rooms in the pipeline. Those are hotels that are under construction, ready to open. Many of those have opened in 2020. It was the worst year to think that you could possibly open, but they still opened and with varying degrees of success. So that will continue to happen in 2020 and 2021. We've seen a lot of deferrals where they put that project off and reschedule that and move the open date back, but things have still opened. So that will impact the occupancy. So demand recovers first, occupancy recovers next. After occupancy, the next metric coming in is, this is economics and forecasting 101, but the next metric coming back will be ADR, the rate. The rate typically follows occupancy in a recovery scenario. Generally, we've seen that in a 3 to 6 month lag. It could be a little more in this situation, but 6 months is probably safe. And then, of course, the last metric there is the Revpar. Revpar obviously is a combination of occupancy and ADR. So in terms of recovery, if you look at all the metrics, some of those metrics will begin to recover in 2021, 2022. Some will take longer. And some will go out to 2023. Some will take, in 2024, especially because it's going to be different in every different area of the world. It's going to depend upon, the reliance on international travel, how quickly do flights come back and things like that. But obviously, those companies are primed and ready to turn things back on as soon as the travelers are ready to get back out there. We know different areas will come back quicker. In places like Europe, UK, and Germany, we predict would outperform other countries, but obviously different countries are going to come back at different relative speeds. This looks at their performance during 2020, just to show you the differentiation between that in 2020. They tended to outperform the rest of Europe. Other trends that we've seen during the 2020, we're going to continue to see in 2021. This is just showing you the difference between the big cities and the smaller cities in the more rural areas. This is showing you an example of that from Australia. If you look at 2020 and 2021, you're going to see from an occupancy point of view that those regional areas tended to outperform the capital cities. And when we look at business on the books going into 2021, we see the very same thing. So that's a quick look at both the performance for 2020, what we're looking ahead into for 2021 as well. Let me show you, there are a couple quick slides that I have for you. As I said before, if you are a school or a professor or a student, we're more than glad to make this data available to you for academic research, for student projects and use in the classroom. Here's a quick list of the type of data that we do make available. Drop me an email if you have more information. Our data has been featured in hundreds of academic research articles. I list some of the high profile examples on here. And then the other thing of importance is STR, part of our Share Center mission is to offer certification training, especially related to analytics. That's obviously our area of expertise. We have two certifications. Many of you have probably already taken this in your universities. The CHIA is our first certification, been obtained by over 27,000 people. That would be students, professors, and industry professionals. And we can get you more information on that. If you're in a school, we can get you connected to the right people at your school to be able to obtain that certification. And then in 2019, we launched an advanced certification called the CATA. Now, the CATA is research-based, so it teaches students how to do a market study, an event impact analysis, a feasibility study, and an economic analysis. Again, if you're in a university, we can get you connected to a professor who could help you obtain that. If you are already graduated, these are offered to industry professionals. They do cost a little bit. As a student, they're a lot cheaper than as an industry professional. So drop me an email if you'd like more information on that. But those are ways we try to help. And we know, it's critical at this point in time to understand the big data, to understand how to use that data to help whatever company you're working for make good strategic decisions. This is the advanced training, just to give you an idea of what gets covered in that advanced training. Now, this is just a look ahead, and we have a minute here, so I want to go through and just show you some examples. And Zandra from Hosco and I talked a little bit about this, and we're going to try to roll this out in a follow-up webinar that we'd like to do in the near future, maybe a March or April type time frame. And it goes back to bright spots in the storm. Now, I try to share some of those bright spots today and give you an idea of, hey, it's not all doom and gloom. There are a lot of areas of the hotel industry that are not suffering, that are actually doing okay, and in some cases they're loving life. And so this is these are some signs that we're seeing. I gave you just a list of them here. In a follow-up webinar, I'll show you examples of all of these and give you more specifics there. But if you go through here, most of the worst is behind us. A lot of hotels have reopened. Some areas of the world, we saw that China, Australia, returning to normalish. Now, here's something important. The hotel industry, is a cyclical industry, and I can go back to 1994. I can show you the downturn in 94, and then boom, downturn in 94 and a recovery, downturn in 2001 and a recovery, downturn in 2009 and a recovery. So, hey, this is not new to the hotel industry. It's a downturn, but the industry has seen a bunch of them, and it always recovers. And the good news is it tends to recover pretty quickly. There are resort destinations that have had a good 2020. I showed you Sanya. I could show you a lot of other destinations. Algarve in Portugal, not a bad year at all. And but they're different areas than you might have thought about. It's not been Barcelona, it's been Algarve. In the US, it's not been Miami Beach or Orlando, but it's been places that you've never heard of. Myrtle Beach. If you don't live in the US, I can guess you probably never heard of it, but had a great, had a good 2020. Gatlinburg, Tennessee, in the Smoky Mountains, great year. And so it's a misconception to think that every hotel has had a terrible 2020. ADR is strong. I showed you that. Regional markets. And a lot of these are just other trends that we've seen during the year. Drive to destinations are outperforming fly to destinations. No surprise. Short haul versus long haul. Coast and country are outperforming. So parks and outdoor destinations, again, outperforming. Islands have done surprisingly well. Weekend getaways in, staycations in, holidays more popular than ever. So again, there are a lot of bright spots out there. So if you're, no reason to lose sleep. It's just going to take a little time. And you may, as a as a hotel industry professional, you may need to think outside the box and maybe reinvent yourself. If you were getting ready to graduate and you have a passion for meeting and events, and that's probably not the best passion to have right now. Think about that for phase two. Right now, think about something else that's going to get your foot in the door. Maybe it's outdoor tourism. Maybe it's weekend getaways, but think about something else that you can go in and use to sell yourself, because that's going to get you in the door. And then if meeting and events are your passion, you know they're going to get back, that they're going to explode in at the end of 2021 and 2022. They're going to explode. And then the hotels are going to need lots of people back in to cover the meeting and events as all of those get turned back on. But keep in mind, when they do turn on, they're going to be different than meeting and events 2019. Meeting and events 2021 and 2022 everyone's going to have a virtual component. But if you can learn about some of those technologies and walk in the door and say, hey, look what I've done, and look what I know, man, they're going to be gobbling you up, because they need people who understand those technologies. I was in a conference yesterday in Germany, and virtually, of course, and it was fantastic. They used a software called Wonder. There was a hangout area. You could go out on the virtual beach and you could walk up to people, and bubbles would appear and you could talk to them. So that kind of stuff is the way to get in the door right now, if meeting and events are your passion. Sorry, rambling a little bit, but you get the idea of the point I'm trying to make. Lots of other ideas and lots of other things in terms of bright spots in the storm, types of hotels that are outperforming other types of hotels. As I showed you, forward-looking data is looking very positive, and different types of hotels that are tending to do better. Hotel companies, CEOs are very optimistic. Forecast shows recovery over time. Now, one of the good bright spots in this situation is the fact that in 2019, at the end of 2019, there were more people traveling than at any time before in history. That's great news if you think about it, because obviously that cut off. We've all been locked up in our homes for an entire year. And once people begin to feel comfortable, if vaccines are a little more readily available, people will be back out there. And any survey that we see, and the surveys to watch are the intent to travel surveys. Just Google that and you'll see a lot of them out there, show a great deal of pent up demand, no surprise. But that's, we're seeing signs of that, because you see weekend, boom, they go up. Holidays, boom, any excuse. New Year's, up. So Chinese New Year will be real interesting to watch. I'll be glad to share that kind of data with you next time I'm back. And so again, it's not all doom and gloom, but you may have to reinvent yourself and think outside the box a little bit in terms of how you're going to get that foot in the door. Let us know if we can help. One of the big things we love students when they pop into that interview and they pop open their laptop and say, hey, look at this research I did last semester at wherever, University of Algarve or any of the other universities that we work with, that makes a great impression. So if we can help in that area, please don't hesitate to let us know. And that's it. Around the world, 60 slides in 45 minutes. Hopefully that was helpful to you. And let me stop sharing the screen and be glad to take some Q&A.
Thank you, Steve. We do have, of course, some questions from the audience. Thank you for everyone that submitted questions. So I'm going to start. I opened a document. I was typing them down because we had quite a few.
And I can see him here too. Yeah, Inez, you see that one? Are you seeing the same ones I'm seeing, Zendra? Inez and Charlotte?
Let me see. Yes, I was picking a few, and then you will see that I was classifying them. So let me just get to my document. Okay. Yeah, and yeah. So the first.
I'll jump in with Inez, and Inez, I can check on France and drop me an email separately, and I'll see if I have anything I can share with you on France. And the other thing to keep up on is, Hotel News Now is a great place to keep in touch with hotel industry data and how the industry is doing all over. So we do webinars on a regular basis for different areas of the world. We haven't done a webinar on France recently, but I think in 2021 they're going to kick back in. So, but if I can find, drop me an email if I can find any information on France.
We actually, and I wanted to let you know, we actually, of course, we have a very international audience. Of course, we're broadcasting this wherever everyone is and Hosco members are, which is global. But we have people asking specific questions about Portugal, well, about how's Portugal doing, what are your predictions, Mauritius, the Caribbean, France, Egypt, and of course, people want to know more about their country, right, and their local reality. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So. I you said maybe they have to visit the STR website to find that information, and they should write an email to you.
Yeah, we'll do.
We can connect you.
Yeah, we do webinars on a regular basis around the world. So those webinars will be typically a small region. So we'll do a webinar in Portugal and Spain, and then we'll do another webinar on maybe France. Yeah, typically those tend to be by themselves, and then we'll do maybe like Germany, Switzerland, Austria together. So check the STR website. There's a link there, COVID-19, and it'll take you to past webinars and then upcoming webinars. But feel free to drop me an email as well. If I can't find data on that, what I'll try to do is next time I'm back in a couple months, I'll try to have more data on that specific area of the world as well. Now, just a couple general statements about the areas. Obviously, some of the areas that you've mentioned are more reliant upon international flights. The Caribbean, unfortunately, is suffering a fair amount because there are not flights going on right now. So that's the big challenge there. Once we got to get those flights turned back on in order for that to happen. Same thing in places like Bali, and
as you said, if you have to take a plane, and also some countries are still blocking people for entering the country, or countries are making it harder for people to go back to their country. Here in Europe and Spain, we have to get a PCR test, and it has to be done in 72 hours. You have to go to a private lab, you have to pay a private test, and it's not easy for everyone. So as you said, right, this year and at least the next few months, and maybe the first half of the year, will be where you can drive, where you can take a train, and something that's more local and closer to you, right?
Yes.
So people were asking about your email. So once again, it's shoot@str.com, or you can also send an email to us, to Hosco, and we will connect you. You can contact us at contact@hosco.com, and we will happy share these, connect you with Steve, or send you the information about STR so you can navigate their website and find the information you're looking for. And again, so many people also ask, can we have the slides? You will have a presentation fully recorded on your email on Tuesday. So remember that, you'll get there and you can go through the presentation and listen to Steve's explanation to get a deeper understanding on the data you want to analyze. So some of the questions we had are, how can you take any of these forecast data seriously with so many last minute cancellations? And it's not the only question we got regarding that people are maybe hopeful about Eastern week, and then last minute they cancel, right? So
no, I mean, it's impossible. And of course, this has been the hardest time for anybody trying to forecast. I remember, gosh, in March, people were forecasting that this was going to be like SARS, and it was going to take 6 months, and
yes.
6 months we'd be back to normal. That's not even close. Yeah, that was optimistic, but not realistic. And when we originally came out with our forecast, which was around April or May, everybody was saying, golly day, that is really pessimistic. But it's actually, I think going to be closer to the truth, unfortunately. And but it's just going to take time. You can't rely upon anything. And forecasting always has risk scenarios, and they talk about good case, bad, best case, worst case, and in the middle. Unfortunately, nobody had, people guessed about lockdown 2.0. It was always a risk in terms of a worst case, but nobody could tell for sure. And cancellations have been tough. people are hoping that Easter's going to be good. So it's really challenging. I'm glad I'm not a forecaster right now. But I'll show you what they're saying. And yeah, so you can shoot don't shoot what do they say?
The messenger.
Don't shoot the messenger. I'll give you the email of our forecast guys.
I mean,
you can talk to them if you don't like it.
It's very hard to predict, especially of course when we're talking about health and you never know what's going to happen the next day. As we know, for example, UK went back to a full lockdown, right? And no one was expecting. And now our hopes are in the vaccination, and the sooner we all can get the vaccines, the sooner we will go back to a normal life, and the sooner business will recover. So our hopes, I guess, are set on how fast can we all get the vaccine.
Yeah, and I know, I've been talking to a lot of international people, and I realize that those delivery rates are different in different areas of the world. I was talking to somebody yesterday in Bahrain who said everybody's vaccinated. Anybody who wanted it, at this point they're vaccinated. Where the person in France was saying not even close, and Switzerland same. So it's going to be different.
Israel is being very fast, but it's a smaller population. So every country has different realities, different amount of population. Of course, the US is one of the biggest countries. So it's different. Of course, it's smaller, it's easier to handle, easier to manage and program.
I saw a few other countries, questions. I mean, let me pick up a few. In terms of spa, again, this is a good example of reinvention. It's funny. There are spas out there that are doing really well, but it's not the typical spas that you've heard of before. Those spas that tend to be a little more remote. If the spa has some sort of an outdoor connection, my daughter actually works at a high-end hotel that has a spa situation that she works in, but they're offering things like horseback riding and hiking. You can go out in the woods and meditate, and they're doing great, but it's the outdoor thing that's tending to be a great kind of situation to connect to. So that'd be a great hint for some of the folks in the spa. I was talking to somebody yesterday, the day before. They're a big urban hotel, but they're near a park. So, on a weekend getaway destination, they could sightsee and maybe hang out in a bar or two, but that's not as safe as you might think. So offer to take them on a little excursion and go hiking in the woods one afternoon. Hey, that sounds safe. And you got to really think outside the box a little bit. Food and beverage, I'm not the best on. Obviously, major impact, no buffets anymore. So it's really rethinking it. But it seems like the restaurant industry has been pretty progressive in this situation. And that would, that'll be interesting to see. Somebody asked a question about Italy. Hard hit, really hard hit. I was just talking this week to Marco, our head of Italy, and I'd be glad to get you in touch with him. He's connected. We're doing something with the Italian Hotel Association, and be glad to get you in touch with them. Profitability in Italy has been a challenge for sure, especially among the smaller hotels, as you were saying. But I'll be glad to get you in touch with Marco and introduce you. They do a lot of things together with organizations in Italy, like the Hotel Association, to maybe get you plugged in and maybe.
I guess the reality in Italy has been like in Spain. I mean, one person asked when more like not only international travel will start, but when actually city travel and city tourism will start, because countries promoted more going to small cities and, as you said, nature. So no one, I mean, it's not like Barcelona was empty, but Barcelona did not have as many tourism as we used to, which is one of the most visited cities in Spain, because we are a city, and although you can go to the beach, it's not the same thing as going to maybe an island with less people, and where you are, more like you have more space for yourself, let's put it that way. So when do you think that kind of will happen, people going back to cities?
That will take some time, and it ties into the question that Michelle asked in terms of return of business, and that's going to take some time. I would think that we'll begin to see some of that happen, during Q1, Q2 a little bit. I think we'll start seeing some meeting and events, small small to start with in Q3 and Q4, but then I think, in 2022, you'll start seeing some of these big events come back in. This would be a great topic. I'm actually doing a presentation coming up on, on group business, and I'd be glad to bring that back next time I talk and share more about that in terms of long-term trends and when that might recover. It's interesting to look at that, when we see the trends in 2009 and 10, and the return of group business. Obviously, group business is complicated. It's the first thing that shuts off in a downturn, and it's, the transit business does not go down as much because, hey, they can still get out and travel, and they're making a decision, a couple days ahead or a couple weeks ahead, where a conference has to do 6 months or a year ahead, and so it comes back much slower. But I'll be glad to show you some of that data and try to give you a better idea. We could look at 2010 and 2011 and when that turned back on, and lessons to learn. Yeah. I think you're going to see some of that meeting and event data happening a little bit more in the smaller cities, potentially, but
maybe also for local residents or people who are traveling inside the country, right? I mean, it will be harder to manage. Even here in Europe, people that are coming from, let's say, Italy will have to get a PCR test. And so even in smaller continents like Europe, it will be harder to make international conference happen. So I guess as a summary on that topic, people regarding international travel, patient, city tourism, more patient, and conference and events, again, we have to be patient. So we're looking at maybe a year, more than a year of recovery from now. I just said 2022, maybe 2023.
Yeah, and I think that's just going to be a fact of life for places like Iceland, and unfortunately, that's going to be a fact of life because it's any places that are so heavily dependent upon international travel.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I mean, can you really forecast? Okay. I mean, we can. Can we do a great job at it? I can't guarantee, anybody can really do a great job at it. It is completely different to other crises. We can look at other crises. Even if you look at 2001 versus 2009, very different. They were both downturns. They both affected the economy, but they were very different. And so when we're looking at this situation, we have to realize, hey, it's unique too. Now you can look at it compared to those other downturns, but you got to realize this is unique. And so the best we can do is see if there might be lessons we can learn and pull out of the previous situations that we can apply in this situation. But that's
one of the questions that we had and that I thought it was very interesting that someone asked about pricing. Do you think pricing is gonna go up after all this is over? Is it traveling gonna become a luxury? Right now, if you're booking for flights, actually they are quite cheap. Today I have a colleague of mine telling me that flying from Cuba to Barcelona was only 300 euros. Canary Islands from Barcelona, you can go for 60 euros, 80 euros, usually is more than 150. So when we go back to normal and demand starts, are companies going to take advantage of the prices are going to go up? What do you think?
It seems to me like the hoteliers have become a little more savvy and intelligent when it comes to pricing. Now, I'm speaking very generalistic, and every area is you can't say that for every hotel and for every area. And of course, I'm only as lucky as my my stupidest competitors. If they lower the price, then I'm impacted. But the general trend that I think we've seen throughout this situation has been the ADR has not gone down as drastically as it had in previous situations. I think that's good news as far as the future is concerned, that they've made better intelligent decisions as far as rates are concerned. And I think we're going to see that. I mean, some of the resort destinations that I mentioned to you that were doing better, their rates are higher than they ever have been. My wife and I tried to sneak away for a weekend getaway in September. I figured we'd get a great discount at a resort that we had gone to before, and no discounts at all. Their rates were much higher than they were the year before. So I think Is that going to happen everywhere? No. If I'm in a big city, urban city, I'm going to be much more apt to be tempted to be discounting. But my hope is that, and my guess is that generally hoteliers will be a little more savvy when it comes to rate, because they realize discounting doesn't really make a difference. If they ever learned a lesson in 2010 and 11, and that was an area where the ADRs did not come back as quickly as in prior situations, it didn't help. Discounting coming out of that recovery just did not help.
Okay, one last question, because we're running out of time. Actually, it's already 6 p.m. over here. And it's about, if you're looking for a job right now, or you're looking for an internship, which are the countries you'll be paying attention to if you want to land a job right away? I know this is hard, because depending where you are, if you're in Europe or if you're in Asia, but which are, going back to those bright spots in the storm, which are the gems people looking for a job should be looking at? And that's the last one we can take.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Go through that list and look at some of those ideas. We'll do a follow-up on that and try to expand upon some of those for more ideas. But those are the types of areas. Those are what I tried to do through that list is give you an idea of hotels, of segments of the hotel industry that are outperforming others. So definitely start in those groups. In terms of areas of the world, Switzerland has actually seen some, robust areas just due to the fact that there's a lot of outdoor tourism opportunities. Like I mentioned, the Algarve actually been good. You saw Lyon was on the charts there in terms of one of the top markets in 2020. Again, you're not going to get a job, or don't go to Paris, but think about places like Lyon and the smaller cities. Those are the kind of places
mountain destinations and nature. Let's say, just put it that way, nature destination.
Yeah. If you are still in school, one of the ways we've tried to help schools is by providing virtual internship alternatives. So if you're striking out on an internship, we know a lot of you are, because the hotel doesn't have anything for you to do in the hotel. We can work with an advisor or a facilitator at your university to try to give you a virtual internship. It would be sort of research related, and we can't pay you for it, but we can give you good experience. Again, if you're in class and you can create a impressive project and walk into that interview, pop open your laptop and say, hey, look what I did in my virtual internship last semester at wherever, that could get you in the door.
And from our side, from Hosco, going back to what Steve said about small cities in around the world that are opening, right, and they are looking for interns and for employees, you can visit hosco.com and you can find opportunities there. We do have right now thousands of opportunities that you can explore. As he said, it might not be Paris if that was your dream, or London if that was your dream, or Madrid. But there are opportunities out there. You have to open your mind, and you have to be ready to go to the nature and to different destinations that maybe you didn't even consider, or you didn't even know existed.
Yeah, or low-end hotels. I mean, I know if you're at a university, you'd much prefer to tell mom and dad, I got a job at the Ritz-Carlton or the Four Seasons. But don't forget the lower end hotels. They have been less impacted by this. You could get a foot in the door at a Mercure or a Premier Inn or a Ibis, and but remember, the opportunity to advance might be a lot greater in one of those hotels. So you could end up in a year or two, you might be the GM of that hotel. Then you go leverage that and go get a job at the Four Seasons or the Ritz-Carlton, and you've already had great experience. So don't sell the lower end hotels short. You can get great experience there and a foot in the door, and you can advance a lot quicker. So there are a lot of opportunities. It's not all doom and gloom.
Exactly. Open your mind. I think we did a webinar about that like a couple of months ago with Fabrice Macor, and we also had Jackie from Lyon, and both of them said the same thing. If you didn't consider kind of a smaller brand or less known brand before, well, is the time to think about that. To open your mind and to start applying to job opportunities, because at the end of the day, what you need, of course, is experience, and that will take you at the end, that will take you where you're looking for, but you need to start, and don't wait for this pandemic to be over. So start right now, start looking, and open your mind to opportunities. It's already, we already run out of time. Thank you so much, Steve. Once again, we still have 20 questions to answer. I'll try my best to look at them once this webinar is over. And if you have more information, I'll try to send it to you via the email we will send on Tuesday. If you want to get in touch with us for something in particular, once again, you can get in contact at contact@hosco.com, with Steve at shood@str.com. And thank you so much. And stay tuned for our next hospitality talks. Thank you, Steve.
Best of luck to everyone.